3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being on board with us. Gamecock coordinators Dowell Loggins, Clayton White speaking today. We'll get you some sound from them, more from Shane, from some of the players that spoke yesterday, including Tonka Hemingway, DQ Smith, Juju McDowell. Those guys all chiming in ahead of the Ole Miss game. Bill Gunner and I did our Gamecocks Plus Cocktail Hour TV show today, previewing a few things. Had some fun with that, and we got into the same kind of discussion that we've been having here on the program. I know he and Coach P and Jen have been having on the morning show as well. You know, what did Kentucky show us? And how can Carolina apply some of that? What did Ole Miss learn about itself in losing to Kentucky? And what did they do to make sure they don't get beat again here in Columbia, knowing that they've got a trip to Baton Rouge next week on the agenda? So a lot of different storylines coming up for this ball game. Auburn's got the trip to Georgia. Alabama goes to surprising Vandy. Vandy has a chance, right?
No.
Oh, come on, man.
I mean, okay. I have just a principle, right, of not, as I just drop everything on my desk, of saying that every team has at least a chance of winning something. But as someone who has been very familiar with the Vanderbilt football program for my entire life and has watched many a Vanderbilt football game, good ones, bad ones, historically horrific ones, most of those falling into that last category, they don't have a chance. What
is Bama's is it 28? Does that sound right?
I thought it might have been 23, but I also could have read that wrong. I looked through
my eyes are bad,
today.
And a 3 and an 8, if on a small screen, if I'm not looking closely enough, could almost be the same thing.
Like, I still remember, I think this would have been 2015. No, this would have been 2016 or 17, that Vanderbilt started off like 3-0 or whatever and looked like pretty good. This is like one of the Kyle Shermer quarterback years. And Alabama was coming into town, naturally, also undefeated. CBS was in town, and it was a big deal, right? At this point, I'm living in Murfreesboro.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, no, that's story. That's John Ted.
Oh, boo.
What is the CBS? Now, all of a sudden, that just...
Oh, wow, classic mix-up.
Sorry.
You know, Alabama comes in, and it's like...
Sorry to John Tesh and the CBS composer guy.
Could this be, a competitive Vanderbilt team? And that was the game that Tua Tagovailoa played the entire second half back when Jalen Hurts was still starting, because it was like a 40-point game at halftime.
Yeah.
It was a historical clubbing.
No, I think Bama's going to
poor Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Because now, I mean, Bama basically now has to continue to do good things. I think they will. Like I said yesterday too. I just didn't. I don't know. Look, I get it. I said yesterday. I get it. Nick Saban's gone. I'm going to give you a fact. You ready for this?
Oh, I love facts.
During his tenure at Alabama, Nick Saban never once put on a helmet and played football.
He didn't. I don't like his chances if he did.
So, Ed Kalen DeBoer wins everywhere he goes. It's, I'm not saying there's zero drop-off or whatever, but what's the most important thing? I'm going to go back to the very last interview I ever did with the late, great Coach Dan Reeves. And after we had finished most of the interview, the last question I asked him, Coach, this was Shane had been hired like 2 weeks prior. Coach, you got any advice for the new head coach at your alma mater? And I'll try to do it as I've done before. That Georgia accent of his. Yeah, tell him to go get some players. This is college football. I mean, it's that simple. And Alabama is loaded with talent, period. So it's
generational talent.
It is, man.
Roster.
I mean, they're so good.
Ryan Williams is a prodigy.
And I'm not saying like addition by subtraction or anything like that. Nick Saban, I do believe, I know it's recency bias, but I've watched enough college football in my life and read enough about the history of college football that the easy case is made that he's the best to ever do it, primarily because of the era in which he did it, when there is more parity, when they are watching you more closely, when there are a lot of schools that have the financial wherewithal to do even more. Alabama is still a poor southern state. I've talked about it before. The demographics of the states of South Carolina and Alabama virtually mirror one another. I love my home state, and I've been to Alabama many, many times. I'm not knocking them. I'm giving you the fact. They're poor southern states in a relative sense. Mm-hmm. Alabama, as a football program, has long punched above that particular level of weight. And Kalen DeBoer is going to, why some guys couldn't, I don't know. Yeah, I still remember when I was a kid and Bear retired. Those of you who remember, Ray Perkins, an Alabama grad, a Bear player, was the coach of the New York Giants. And he quit to go coach Alabama. He left the New York Giants.
The National Football League.
And not just any team, the New York Giants. If you leave the Cardinals or something, sure. Or the Falcons. Again, 10 years later, Dan Reeves was the coach of the Giants. And I remember the great Jim Powell doing his talk show here 30-whatever years ago. Gamecock fans, we should go get Dan Reeves. And I remember Jim, I've never forgotten this, Jim on his show. He's like, yeah, here's how that conversation is going to go. I'll be Mike McGee. And so Jim's like, hey, Dan, it's Mike. Hey, Mike. Just fired Sparky Woods. Any interest in the job? No, Mike. All right, thanks.
You share a click.
That's it. And again, I'm not dogging Carolina or Coach Reeves. I'm not leaving the New York Giants to come coach South Carolina. I'm not going to leave to coach Alabama or Georgia. But anyway, I say all of those things and walk around. Kalen DeBoer wins. He connects with his players. And Alabama already has everything else in place. The resources, both the physical, the financial, dare I even say the mental. We expect to win every game we play because we are Alabama, period. It's that simple. And then you got to go do it. So anyway, we'll get into those things for you too. Tennessee, again, it's one of those tricky games. Like I say, it's not like a trap or something like that. I asked you yesterday. I forget how I worded it first, and then I said, if you're not paying attention,
yeah.
If you're not taking Arkansas serious, Arkansas feels better about itself right now. They lost another tough one the other day to A&M. But they went to Auburn and won. It's just you got to be careful. That's all. I expect Tennessee to win that football game, but you got to be careful.
I think you call it a hangover game, and if you're hungover after an entire bye week, then you partied really hard the week before. Yeah. You raged really, really hard. But
I think I said letdown. I said letdown. Yeah, it's just and I didn't. I knew what I was going for in the sense of this isn't going. We're not going to Oklahoma.
Yes.
And in a week or so, when do they go to Athens? 2 or 3 weeks from now?
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I think they play.
I'm not going to Athens, right? I'm not doing that. I'm not going to Gainesville, even though this year they'd welcome that. But in a typical sense,
Yeah, Florida comes to Knoxville this year.
We're going to, we're going to Fayetteville.
It's a program game, though. I will say this. The one thing about, I guess, Tennessee post-Philip Fulmer is that they will occasionally have the good team, pre-Josh Heupel, post-Philip Fulmer, and that in between. They would occasionally have a good team that had the capability of winning some big games, but then would lose the game to Arkansas on the road. They never established a real winning program because you would still slip up and lose a lot of those type games. If you want to be where you want to be, which is in the college football playoff discussion, and being a team that's looked at as a legitimate national title contender, you cannot lose the game at Arkansas.
Right.
This is normally a game that Tennessee would lose. So I think it's a program game, maybe if anything. You don't slip up against those teams.
No. Drive around the SEC a little bit later on. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli on the beat for the AP, not just covering the Gamecocks, but a lot of things around the sports scene in the state of South Carolina. Pete's going to join us coming up bottom of the hour. We'll primarily discuss what's going on with the Gamecocks with Pete, but may throw a little Clemson at Florida State in. Tigers heavy favorites in this one.
Man, at the beginning of the season, would you fathom that Florida State would be 14.5-point underdogs to Clemson at home?
No.
I think at the beginning of the season, I could see Clemson being a favorite in Tallahassee, just because I definitely could see there being a letdown for Florida State, given the transfer portal heavy team, given some of the games early on against teams that I thought were going to be better than people expected, like Boston College, Georgia Tech. but I did not foresee them being this bad, as in like lose to SMU 42-16 bad. I don't think anybody foresaw that, and DJ Uyunglele's revenge game is probably canceled because he might not play because that injury to his throwing finger. And now Brock Glenn's going to have to play, and we saw exactly how well Brock Glenn played in the ACC championship game and the Orange Bowl last year, which, long story short, not good. I will summarize those two games with 2 words: not and good.
Meanwhile, speaking of not good, the Atlanta Braves fell last night. Was it 4-0?
4-0. 12 strikeouts, Michael King.
And as I said to Terry and Tyler before you came in, Elijah, the Atlanta Braves in the innings I watched, and I will admit I did not watch the whole game because I just like, well, you know what? If they do something, I'll get an alert and I'll turn it back on. But the Braves looked, when I was watching, like a team that had played 5 games in 4 days. And then had to fly 2,000-something miles to go play their next game 24 hours later. That's what the Braves looked like. And maybe tonight, now that they're kind of acclimated to West Coast time, Max Fried's on the hill. I mean, it's no, getting out to the point of literal. I can use the term must-win game if you want to keep playing baseball.
1-0 in those situations.
Yeah,
this year
they are. I mean, yeah. Well, that's one thing I said is that you're going to have played 2 must-win games in 48 hours. Whether that helps or not, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I hope so, as a fan. But one thing, and I don't mean to rain on the parade here, fellow Brave fans. Tonight could well be the last time we see Max Fried pitch for the Atlanta Braves.
Would be very unfortunate.
I hope they keep him.
Got to try everything you can to keep him.
But it could be. You never know. So, anyway, 8:30 again tonight. Right now, Houston and Detroit are playing. We are bottom 2. Again, Detroit won yesterday. This series is in Houston. Detroit won yesterday 3-1, but the Astros have 2 on, 2 out, bottom 2, 2-2. Man, talk about deuces wild. And Jason Hayward just struck out. So it's over.
Jason Hayward hitting 211.
Yeah.
What is left of Jason Hayward?
He needs glasses or something, man. 803
time machine.
Well, 803.
I think that's a bigger issue.
404-6100 for you being a part of the program, whether it's Carolina football, what's going on around the SEC, the Braves, if you want to get into that for you. Got a lot of sound to get to from the coordinators. We'll do that. And again, our buddy Pete Iacobelli coming up in about 15 or 20 minutes to talk more on the Gamecocks and the Rebels. It's the Wednesday postgame show. 18 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Before we do anything else, let's jump on the phones. Casey wants to talk about what's going on with the Gamecocks this weekend and maybe more. Casey, good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing great, fellas. I hope y'all are too.
Yeah, thank you.
Earlier in the week, y'all had a conversation about, what part of the Carolina team needs to be or take a step forward to really make a difference in this game. I didn't get a chance to put my 2 cents in, but honestly, I've seen Dylan Stewart start to struggle on the outside, and maybe that's opening up Kyle Kennard to just continue to have good games. I'm not sure, but if those two could take a step forward, with one being a veteran, one being a freshman, if those two guys could take a step forward, then the Ole Miss game is ours to lose. Because as long as our coaching is as good as I believe it is, then on offense we will make enough adjustments to win the game offensively as long as that defensive thing happens. And if it doesn't, then I don't think that we'll be able to keep up with Ole Miss and its high-flying offense, honestly.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, and thanks, Casey, for the phone call. I thought he might be going towards the secondary, which I probably could have said as well, but without pressure up front, it may not matter as much, so I think he's on to something here. And I don't know. I mean, Stewart maybe wasn't quite as active last week.
On the stat sheet, yeah. I mean, I think Casey's right in terms of he's not as productive in what we would call like the football card stats. But if you watch the LSU game, he commands a lot of attention. You can't go one-on-one with Dylan Stewart because Dylan Stewart's going to win one-on-one. I think that's really the big thing whenever I watch it, too. Like, Dylan Stewart has a lot of those intangibles as an edge rusher that you can't really teach in someone that young, like having great bend and being able to just like dominate one-on-one. Like, LSU had to throw help. Like Mason Taylor, even though he caught a lot of passes, spent a lot of time doing what the Niners do with George Kittle, and that sometimes make you a glorified left or right tackle, right? And put you on the end of the line, and maybe not running routes, but adding, extra help for max protect with a tight end or a running back. But he's just so good at this point; it commands tension. But what Casey does, I think, really nail is that it does help Kyle Kennard a lot when one side of the line is getting that much attention. That means Kyle Kennard can get one-on-ones.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doubling somebody.
Yeah, and unless you just want to play, 12 personnel the entire game, but not have those tight ends run routes and keep them on the line to help your left tackle out. Like, if you have that much tension on one, it's going to help the other. And I think that's one of the reasons why Kyle Kennard has been as good as he has been, because he has somebody on the other side of the line who is also just as productive. So that's why you kind of have one of the best pass rushing attacks in all of college football. But I wouldn't put the panic button, even in view for Dylan Stewart. And this is a game where Ole Miss is going to have to maybe change the way they do some things on offense in terms of getting the ball out quicker. They get the ball out fast, but Jay Phillips, almost half their pass attempts do go out over, 10 yards down the field, and that takes a little bit of time to develop.
On that note, if you would please, sir, we have a brand new cut list that Elijah and Tyler have been busy carving up for us from today's coordinator availability. Cut number 17 from Clayton. I think that goes right into the last point you were making here. Here's Clayton White on what he sees on film of how Ole Miss makes adjustments.
Does a lot, actually. Obviously, Kentucky did a good job of slowing the game down. That's not what Ole Miss wants to do. So I'm anticipating things to be faster. So we're trying to play the little chess game and, how can we slow it down and ways that they can make it faster. So think about it a ton. During the week of the process, think about it a lot, actually. So always trying to find ways to make sure that we're ready. And we can't be surprised by certain things and ready to adjust whenever we're out there on the field and in the press box and on the sideline and iPads and mics and everything. So make sure we're on point.
It's, again, what's the old, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You don't expect Mississippi to come to Columbia and say, okay, well, it just didn't work last time. We'll go back to it. You were just, and you'll have more of this today and throughout the week, but Elijah was laying some stats on me. And this isn't to dog Ole Miss in any way what I'm getting ready to say, other than, they played 4 non-con games, and then they're going to play 8 straight conference games. And that's fine. I think Missouri's doing the same thing. A lot of schools do that. That's cool. But the toughest game they played was at Wake Forest. And this season, Coach Clawson's team maybe just not quite as good as some Wake Forest teams in the recent past have been. And Ole Miss didn't have much trouble. But I'll admit, we all thought, I wasn't here Friday for the previews, but when we were talking about the Kentucky-Ole Miss game, I was like, look, Kentucky played well against Georgia. And maybe they can go in there and do some good things defensively, but Ole Miss is still going to score 30 points. So what can Kentucky do about that? Well, Ole Miss scored 17 points. My point being, maybe Ole Miss, I think, is as talented as we believe them to be, but they had not faced any type of physical adversity yet.
No.
And Kentucky presented that. So they'll react to that. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin on the offense. They'll react to that. Defensively, they played well against UK. So
played well, yeah, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, to Clayton's point, what Carolina can learn, but also then be somewhat ready for from an adjustment standpoint will be interesting. And I will come back around and say, for me, I like what they're doing up front a lot. I am concerned of how, since they go so quickly, how many substitutions you're able to make, because that's one of the things that Carolina's been relying upon, is that they keep those guys fresh up front. And then secondly, what you're doing at the back. It's a huge day for everybody defensively. I'm not going to try to put one unit over another of the three, but they are going to complete passes. And they are going to have some guys get open in space because that's how they line up. And you're going to have to tackle. You got to tackle, and you got to be ready for help. We saw a busted play allow ODU to score. We saw not as bad a busted play allow Akron to score. Those things are on film and how they occurred. And I look for Lane to exploit that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that's happened to South Carolina this year is they've given up a couple of big plays through the air. I think coverage-wise, they're much better than they were last year, just through our first 4-game sample size. But the very few plays that there might have been a miscommunication, the Old Dominion one I think was strictly miscommunication based off really what we know, and that's Clayton White talking about the play not necessarily being completely delivered onto the field in time, a mix-up in coverage, allowing Old Dominion to just completely open up a large pass play. And the more I look at the Akron one, I think Judge Collier might have mistimed a jump a little bit. Yeah. Might have just mistimed. But you can't have that against this team because
it'll go for a score.
One thing that Ole Miss does a lot is throw the ball downfield.
Right.
About 1 out of every 5 passes travels 20 yards in the air. And I think they're going to throw more than 5 passes in this game, Jay Phillips. So there's going to be a lot of chances for Ole Miss to take shots deep. Yeah. You got to be on your P's and Q's and making sure that help is behind you, and you got to make sure you tackle the guys in front of you. I think that's, in terms of common themes between Clayton White and Shane Beamer's presser yesterday, when both guys were asked about the secondary, the emphasis was on tackling. This Ole Miss team is really good with the ball in their hands with their pass catchers. Jay, they pick up 7.7 yards or yards after the catch. On average, the average catch gets 7.7 yards tacked on after it. They break a lot of tackles. To give you an idea of how big that number is, that's third in the SEC behind Florida and Texas. And Texas is picking up about 8 flat yards after the catch.
Florida, huh?
Florida, surprisingly enough. Florida gets
Did they get all those against Samford?
They might have, actually. They actually might have gotten all those against Samford. But Texas and Florida, the only two that get more after the catch in this conference on a per-catch basis, you got to be able to wrap up. Because Trey Harris, and we know what Juice Wells can do with the ball because we saw what he did against Georgia last year.
Yep.
For the Gamecocks, you've seen what these Ole Miss receivers can do once the ball's in their hands. Don't let, and Shane said this yesterday, don't let a 5-yard catch be a 30-yard catch.
Yeah.
If you can keep yourself from doing that, you'll do some of that minimizing of the damage. And I think Kentucky did a really good job of not allowing a bunch of those 10-yard catches with the ball traveling about 10 yards in the air to turn into massive explosive plays.
We'll stay with previews of this game. Our buddy Pete Iacobelli on the beat for the Associated Press will join us on the other side. You're listening to the Wednesday Postgame Show. Talking some Gamecock football as Carolina gets set to host the Ole Miss Rebels Saturday afternoon. Mississippi coming in here, at least for now, as a 9-point favorite. Could be a special team score in there somewhere, and if so, somebody's going to win $500. It's the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. It's back for another season. If nobody wins this weekend, we'll put another 100 into the pot. But again, right now it's at $500. Here's the thing. You can't win if you don't register. So go to 1075thegame.com. Look for the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest, and then hope that Carolina scores a special teams TD, and you could win, thanks to Lawyer Lisa and her crew. Again, register at 1075thegame.com. Here to discuss the rise of Indiana football and more is our good friend Pete Iacobelli on the beat for the Associated Press.
Playing well, though.
Always appreciate Pete's time. How you doing, Pete? Throwing you a curveball on this Wednesday. What's going on, sir?
That's right. Kurt Signetti's doing the job there, right?
He is, man.
You had some questions after JMU, didn't you?
You did, yeah, and he's answering them, and he's 63, but I feel like he's going to do good things at IU for a couple of years, and then, he's going to go somewhere else. Well, he's a young and very successful 63, but we'll get there. In the meantime, Shane Beamer is a young and, at least for this season, maybe more successful than some thought, 40-something-year-old Pete. Before we talk about this weekend, your assessment of what you've seen through this first month relative to your expectations before the season kicked.
Well, I mean, I'm not, I had those same expectations that many people did. Did I see 31-6 at Kentucky? Of course not. I mean, it just didn't look like, especially after the ODU game, right? It just didn't look like a team that could have that needed a little seasoning before it really got going. I didn't expect 17-0 over LSU to start. I didn't expect 24-10 right before halftime. I didn't expect any of that out of this team. So I think that they are in a very, very good spot at the moment, as long as the people who performed well so far, the Kyle Kennards, the Lenora Sellers, the Raheem Sanders, people like that, Dylan Stewart, as long as they continue to make plays, you've got to see that they're going to be in most games. Not every game. I still believe going to Alabama is maybe a little bridge too far at this point. But you've got to like what they may be able to do this weekend against Ole Miss.
In this Ole Miss game, I think was one of the ones at the beginning of the year that I think, me personally gave them a small chance to win just because of the expectations of Ole Miss. But now Ole Miss comes in here limping after a loss against Kentucky. How do you kind of look at this matchup right now? And does, I guess, the loss against Kentucky really change your opinion on how Ole Miss operates or anything like that?
No, I did think that this would be one of those trap games maybe for Ole Miss. That maybe they'd come in not expecting it. I think they're on high alert at the moment, but I also think that the Gamecocks are playing better than we might have imagined at the time before the season began, obviously. So, I mean, I'm anticipating this being close. I'm anticipating this going into the fourth quarter. And then maybe there's if they get there, maybe it's a coin flip. I mean, let's just go back a couple of weeks to LSU and, Nick is running down the sidelines with that interception. And it sure looked like that game was going to be all over right then with 5 minutes to go. So I do see a scenario where South Carolina can put themselves in that position against Ole Miss.
Talking to Pete Iacobelli of the AP, Carolina Ole Miss this weekend. Beyond some of the obvious, Pete, in terms of concerns, and that being maybe injuries to your starting quarterback and your starting tailback and one of your top receivers, really more from a schematic or positional standpoint, what's still your biggest concern for this team? Where do you see, the ceiling still having a long way to go before it's reached?
I do believe that some of the younger players, particularly Dylan Stewart, have got to break through that kind of, wall that they got to, thinking, well, maybe this is really easy. Maybe this is easier than I anticipated. He was not as much of a factor against LSU as maybe some people expected, or maybe he could have been. And I think that's a guy who has to indeed kind of step up and break through the walls and just kind of continue developing at his own pace. I do think that with Sellers in there, I mean, I really do like how Ashford played in relief of Sellers against LSU, and then 2 weeks ago against Akron. But obviously, Sellers is the guy who can make this offense go, especially if he's completely healthy. I mean, we saw him take off on that touchdown run, and it's not like a lot of things that you saw too well. Perry Orth was not going to do that, behind center. So I think that those younger players have to just keep on developing and make sure that they get to, continue to just kind of move forward.
And I think the big story last year, for anybody who's covered this team or watched this team, was discussing the offensive line play. And not just the injuries, but there was a lot of futility there, even with the players that were healthy, because they're mostly young and inexperienced. This year, they got a lot older. They're a lot more experienced, and they got better players, quite frankly, that they're playing on the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. But what's kind of been your evaluation, and when you talk to coaches and people around the program, how they feel about their situation in the trenches than maybe they did last year?
They feel like things are progressing. I don't think anybody thinks that they are there yet, but they are certainly playing better. They are certainly holding blocks better. They are certainly holding off defenders better. Now, I do believe that we're coming into a month where they are going to see, some of the best in the SEC. And it is going to be imperative that they even hold on for that extra, that second or two that can make a difference for springing a big play. This is going to be a difficult month. But, as people say, right, how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time. And the bite this week is Ole Miss.
Pete, one of the things that will become a story on Saturday, and I've been hesitant to bring it up because I think dwelling on it too much is not good for anybody. But Antoine Wells, Juice Wells, is coming back.
Yeah.
Obviously had some real flashes for Carolina, but last year a lot of things on and off the field made that relationship untenable. How do you anticipate his return from a Gamecock fan perspective? Do you sense that it's going to be hostile all day? Does that help Juice in any way? Does it help Lane Kiffin? What are you looking for?
I do believe that there's going to be some residual anger. When Juice left, there were fans, and maybe these are just the vocal fans or the Twitter vocal fans who you see out there, but there was a lot of disappointment / anger about this decision simply because of what he did his first year here and then what he didn't do last year, that he was not able to back one up, with the last year up with the first year that he was here. I do think that they're going to let him know that they were not super happy that he left the program. But that said, I mean, it's not like Juice has lit things up yet with Ole Miss. I mean, I'm sure Ole Miss hopes that his breakout game with them comes this weekend. But Harris on the other side is a tremendous player, and they better make sure they've got him, the players have him locked down before anybody gets up in Juice's face about this. And I think Juice is the kind of player who just kind of he gets fueled by some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. I think Lane Kiffin seems like the kind of coach who gets fueled by this kind of stuff. So, we'll see how it goes, and hopefully everybody keep their composure that it doesn't get silly or out of hand. But there are going to be some moments where Juice is going to know that the fans were not happy with his decision to leave.
And I like the breakdown of, the entire Ole Miss receiving core is really good. Trey Harris gets a ton of targets, and Juice really good also with the ball. And we know what this pass rush can do and how good this defensive line is and how good some of the linebackers are. But I think the secondary is kind of the one position group that I'm looking at most to be able to try to contain some of Ole Miss's passing game. But who in that secondary do you think you need to see a little more of if South Carolina was to beat Ole Miss and slow that passing game down?
Well, I mean, I think that, I think we've seen plenty from Nick Emanwari already. DQ Smith can step up and play better. They have had a good scheme so far. I mean, Kennard and Stewart didn't let Blake Vandegraff get a lot of time before he was under pressure and had to make some silly throws or throws that were just not even close to being complete. They need to get that kind of performance out of all those guys on defense. I mean, I think we're going to see Debo Williams everywhere on the field. I really do believe this is going to be one of those games where he has got to, go sideline to sideline and be right in the middle of most defensive plays in order for South Carolina to have a chance to pull it.
Pete, I got about a minute left here. Not asking for a score prediction or even which way it goes, but I will ask you like this. South Carolina wins this game if they blank.
Well, if they pressure Jackson Dart. I mean, the guy's proven most times that he can get the ball out pretty very fast, and his receivers are usually open, or if they're not, they're about to get open when the ball is there. So Kennard, Tonka Hemingway, you name it, who's ever on the defensive line is going to have to make sure that they get in his face a little bit and let him know that he can't sit back there and pick out targets.
Great stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. We'll come around to Hoosier football next time we get you, okay?
Right. No Braves baseball this time around, huh?
I'm just trying to hold. Listen, Monday was tough.
Yeah.
And so last night I kind of expected. So today I'm trying to keep it all in check, man.
That's right. It's okay, Jay. It'll be okay. I promise.
Thank you. I'm trying. That's Pete Iacobelli of the AP. Always great at what he does. Catch his work well. Anywhere you get the AP, that's pretty much how that goes for a guy like Pete. Thanks, man. See you soon.
Thank you.
You
Talk
bet.
to you soon.
All right. Postgame show coming back.
I mean, even without watching it, you're just doing the game. You want to feel confident. Watching it, I mean, at the end of the day, we still got to go play the game. You never know the outcome. So you just got to prepare right and do the right things.
That's Tonka Hemingway on watching Kentucky beat Mississippi. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Played that clip for you here because Pete Iacobelli, who just joined us, thanks, Pete, was just mentioning, I asked him a question at the end there. Carolina will win if they blank, and he said that you got to get pressure on Dart, whoever it may be. And so there's one of those guys in the middle. And, to come to back to one of the things that you were talking about before we talked to Pete and what Pete talked about when it comes to a guy like Dylan Stewart, LSU basically had to pick their poison, right? And Carolina did get to Nussmeier often enough. The kid made some plays. Can you do the same things? It's a different style of offense, but can you do the same things in principle? If you can, I agree with Pete. But that really is job one, I think. It's not so much – I mean, again, I'm not disagreeing here or even like pushing back. It's just the disruptive nature of what the defensive line can do. And we talk about that when you and I speak with Langston all the time. And I know Preston, who was also a D lineman, feels the same way. You and I talk sometimes, too, about the trading card stats. That's not always the best way or the only way, certainly, to measure the performance of a defensive line. Are you disruptive? Because the one thing that Ole Miss wants is tempo and rhythm, tempo and rhythm, tempo and rhythm. And if they've got it, if they've got it, you're going to lose probably because right now they've got a great line and they do have a lot of talent. And they've got a terrific play calling coach who loves to play chess. And he's good at it. So all of those things can work against you if you can't find a way at times to be disruptive. On that note, and we'll come around with this probably more tomorrow and Friday, but in watching the Kentucky game, it was the first time this season that I had really paid a lot of attention in any one game to Ole Miss. And I didn't realize, Elijah, how often they like to stop things with, I'm going to be careful here, with the injuries. I won't air quote, but they stop a lot. And yet, it's ironic because they probably wouldn't want you doing that to them or Lane would complain. And I was surprised by how much they were doing it the other night. Now, maybe they were gassed to some degree, too, because of how physical Kentucky was. But it is something that is now very much on my radar. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to learn how much it's on the Carolina coaching staff's radar.
I'm sure it definitely is. It's a very well-known thing that teams that play up-tempo will do that pretty frequently. I mean, if you go back and watch the Ole Miss-Tennessee game from 21, the infamous mustard bottle game, that happened. Like there were a lot of stoppages in that game. That game took a long time to complete because there were a lot of injury timeouts from both teams. Both teams did it because they both play incredibly fast and they both have like their own methods of slowing the game down, and those methods are sometimes maybe having somebody nurse an injury a little longer on the field than they normally would. And that happens pretty frequently. I think someone even did a deep dive with Tennessee that there's one specific player that goes into the game after like extra points or something and hits the deck. One specific player. Like that is like the role of that player. And Ole Miss might have a very similar system in place. And when you play that many plays, like if you just go back and look at the offensive plays from Ole Miss this year, they played 82 snaps against Furman, 73 against MTSU, 79 against Wake Forest, 69 nice against Georgia Southern, and 56 against Kentucky, a more normal number. But they will play a lot of plays on offense. They will make sure they get the ball, and they'll make sure they get their fair share of snaps and do it pretty quickly and extend the game that way, right? I mean, you have more chances to score more points if you can run more plays. And in order to do that, in order to keep everybody fresh, you need some time when the clock is not running to be able to afford you that luxury.
I remember, I don't know how many years ago now, and you're good about remembering some of these, but I remember watching like a Pac-12 after dark game. I want to say it was Cal playing somebody. And Cal seemed to have one of those dudes, but he was just like, I think it was Cal. And just, he was walking fine, right? And then I guess like saw somebody on the sideline or got the signal or something. And then it was just, he had been shot by a sniper. He just like falls.
Oh, yeah. Like there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing around him and looked perfectly fine during the play.
Yeah, and a big dude, too. And he just like fell. I'm like, oh, man, he got shot. I was like, oh, no, he's just faking an injury. So as much as I don't like that, does Carolina need to give some of it back this weekend? I mean, what does that part of the chess match look like? We'll get Patrick Davis's take on what the Gamecocks are doing. He's got a big special coming up that you want to hear about, and got a lot more football to discuss as the postgame show continues.
Quick word, my friends, over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Look, we're already a couple days into October now, as wild as that is. You're going to blink and that holiday season is going to be here before you know it. I know that because that's how this stuff works. Time moves quickly. So if you have a weight loss goal that you would like to achieve by the holiday season, there is no better time than now to call my friends over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Paul Grant and Shaylin do a fantastic job of coaching, getting you on the program that works best for you, and doing all this without any pills, without any shots, and helping you establish some healthy habits so you can be able to keep this weight off even once you're through with the program. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give them a call, and they can help you learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and reach your success story by the time the holidays roll around. That number is 803-824-4210. Again, that's 803-824-4210 or ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Second hour of the Postgame Show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us wherever you might be. Hoping a lot of you have gotten the power back and life is normalizing. Again, to the folks to the west and north of us here in South Carolina, and certainly those in the mountains of western North Carolina, continue to think about you. There's a lot of ways to help. Make sure you're chipping in to do your part to help these folks. So many places just devastated, as we've seen many times here in our own lives. 2015 especially, we deal with our share of hurricanes like we did the other day. May get another one before it's all said and done. But man, this one popped us pretty good, y'all. You know, especially once it jogged a little bit to the east from its forecast track. So thinking about all those folks. I know some of you still without power. Hang in there. Thank goodness it's, not been brutally South Carolina hot the last few days for those that didn't have it. But we'll keep you updated. Speaking of updates, Detroit and Houston, no score. Houston is hitting bottom 5 1-on. It's a must-win game for the Astros. If not, Detroit will advance. And hang on, I got to go back and look real quick.
Lexington County Blowfish legend Chaz McCormick at the plate right now.
The winner of this series will get Cleveland. And the winner of the Kansas City-Baltimore series will get the New York Yankees. KC up 1-0 in that one after winning 1-0.
Terry Ford is thrilled with that.
He's not happy.
No.
Again, I kind of anticipated. I never, want to admit it, but I anticipated a Braves loss last night. That's just a big ask, man.
It is. But you get a night to rest. You get your second best pitcher on the mound.
Yep.
That's healthy. Spencer Strider hadn't been healthy all year. So your second best pitcher this season on the mound in a big game where he's been big for you in big games. And then all you can ask is to get you that game 3.
I'll win 1-0. That's fine.
Yeah, because you know what that is?
It's a win.
That's still a W, baby.
W. That's right. Always a pleasure to talk to our good friend Patrick Davis, who is getting ready to teach, I think you said, teach Jim Furyk how to swing his golf club regular. Is that right? Something like that? What's up?
Yeah, we're going to work on that tonight. I just got to Jacksonville doing a little driving, and I feel like Jim could use a little help with the swing.
just a little bit of help. That's what we said. Yeah, it's going to be a
tournament every year.
Yeah, a contest to swing funny and still win the U.S. Open. So he's got that going for him, which is pretty.
Well,
good.
he did just win he's going to be in a good mood. They just won the President's Cup. He was the captain, so I was on pins and needles for him on all weekend just because we do this event every year, and I wanted him to be in a very good mood, and he's going to be in a very good mood, I believe.
There you go.
So,
well, wave that flag.
Yeah.
What you been up to?
Oh man, a whole bunch of things, and thanks for having me on. I just want to send some love to all the South Carolina and North Carolina folks that are listening out there. Man, what a terrible past few days. But yeah, I'm releasing this tomorrow in South Carolina and all over the country. My TV show comes out on ETV and PBS, American Public Television. So I guess that's what I'm doing.
Southern Songwriters tomorrow night, and we've had you on talking about this on multiple occasions. Did a show here in Columbia and going around. Just remind everybody how this kind of thing got going for you.
Well, basically, it's the fine folks at ETV in South Carolina. SETV has always been very kind to me, and I've always been a big fan. And so we kind of worked out an idea for a show, and then we decided it was going to be a national show. And it's a little bit Anthony Bourdain and a lot Austin City Limits. I get to go to these cool little southern towns and talk about what makes them amazing. And I did one show in Camden where I grew up, and we have a house now as well, and then Greenwood and Columbia, and then in Sumter. And so the first 4 were done in South Carolina because, well, I'm from South Carolina. So season 2 we'll do in a few other places, but it's just been a lot. It's been a real blessing, and if you love music and you love the South, I think you'll probably find something on the show for you.
I've known you a long time now, but I ask this very seriously. When you do something like this, what did you learn about you from maybe a musician standpoint that you were like, oh okay, or just those influences? But what popped up?
Well, I went to South Carolina and I graduated with a history degree, which I've actually really never used other than when I write a historically, accurate song maybe here and there. But it was a lot of fun to kind of tap into that. I got to go to these small, Columbia's not necessarily a small town, but it has a lot of history that folks might not, be aware of, I guess. And so it was a lot of fun to go and kind of use that muscle. And then it's also just when I get to sit on stage with, I'm sitting beside, I don't know, Dan Tominski, or when I'm sitting beside Mark Broussard or Gabe Dixon from Tedeschi Trucks, or Charles Kelly from Lady A, all these guys that are on the show, and Maggie Rose, all these, these folks that are such incredible performers. And I get to see them a lot, and we get to hang out. We've written songs and things, but to have them in that environment and get to sit there and watch them perform next to me, it's staggering. It can't do anything but motivate you to try to be better because they're so incredible. So that was probably the most fun part for me, was just kind of showcasing my friends and just and being in awe, because I've always known how talented they were. And I mean, a lot of these folks are world famous, but at the same time, it's just always something special when you're sitting beside them.
And now for your most important occupation, Gamecock fan. Going into the season, I think every fan had some varying with their expectations of how this team was going to be, with a kind of new look on offense and all that good stuff. But we're 4 games in. The Gamecocks are 3-1, heading into a big game this Saturday. What's kind of your take on this team now that we're like 33% of the way through the season?
Yeah, I don't know. I think all of us Gamecocks are probably pretty pleasantly surprised with how the season's gone so far. Not that I expected us to not do well, but it was just, we were a play or two away from winning a referee or two away from winning the LSU game. So, we just really have, a lot of goodwill has been created over the past month or so. So I'm hoping that maybe on Saturday, I mean, if we somehow pull off, an Ole Miss, win, that's just going to be it's going to be fever pitch around. We're going to we're going to be buying national championship tickets, So, but I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, I'm lucky enough to every now and then I'll text Shane or Sean Elliott, my old buddy, and just kind of give him a thumbs up, be like, hey man, thanks, that was a great game. I kind of left him alone after the LSU game, of course, but I think everybody's got to be pretty excited about what this season, when it's gone so far, but this next month is kind of bonkers, so we'll just see.
How much fun was it to do what you did when Hootie and the boys, we're all, I say Hootie and the boys, the Hootie boys is what I was trying to say because his name's Darius, were here in Columbia a few weeks ago. I know you were part of all that.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I actually got emotional. I think anybody that was there probably, it was such a beautiful thing to watch the response of so many South Carolinians come together and, hometown heroes and just to see them get that response. Even for Edwin McCain, I said for Edwin, they were singing back "I'll Be." I gave him a hug afterwards. I was like, I choked up. I was like, because it was, it's just something that it's such a powerful moment. He even said, he's like, it's kind of crazy to feel that, and I think that was beautiful. And then Ed Rowland and the Collective Soul guys have been long time friends. And so Ed, when I saw him, he's like, hey, you want to come sing with me on stage? And I was like, yeah, sure. What song? And he was like, Dirty Deeds. And I was like, AC/DC? He was like, I was like, when you think of Patrick Davis, you're not really thinking Bon Scott. But it was a lot of fun, and we did it 2 nights in a row. I definitely, it was definitely a good time, but I really was. It was everyone that was there probably had the same feeling that I did. Just so proud of those guys. Being friends with them maybe a little bit different, but I was just really, really, really proud of those guys. And I want to send some love to all the Hootie boys right now too, because our friend DB, who had been with them for 25 years, running production stuff for them, actually passed away yesterday, and so we a bunch of love out there to the Hootie family. If anybody out there is listening, and if you know those guys, send them some love too.
Yeah, spread that all around. I'm sorry to hear that, and best to the family. Before we get you out of here, what's on the horizon musically? I know you've been. I say letting some of these big songs that you've done this last year or so kind of trickle out along the way. But what's the next big project?
Yeah. Well, we have. I think in 2 weeks, "Carolina When I Die," the song "Carolina When I Die" will come out, and it's a really special song for me for many reasons. But I actually, on this version that we're releasing, it's me, Darius, and Edwin are doing it together, and so I think that'll be hopefully make some people smile, and I'm pretty excited about that. And right now, it's kind of, I'm in California this weekend for a show, today Florida, and just getting the word out about the TV show. You know, like tomorrow night, I think it airs 9:00 is it's episode 1 on all the South Carolina ETV stations, and I think it starts in about 7 or 8 different states this weekend on PBS and American Public Television, and then we've been very fortunate. It's been picked up by places from California to New York City. New York is, the way that ETV works is, or the way that public television works is they can pick the stations, each individual stations picks when they want to air the show. So it could happen anytime in the next 3 or 4 months. So it kind of rolls in, but you guys can go to southernsongwriters.com or to my website, patrickdavismusic.com, and get all the air dates. But South Carolina people, tomorrow night, 9:00, please tune in.
Good stuff. And we'll make
and go Braves.
Yeah, here's
Go
hoping,
Braves.
man. Here's hoping. Again, they can't lose this one if they want to keep playing. I know that much.
Well, I'm hoping that tomorrow, when Southern Songwriters is on the first episode, you're flipping back from the Braves beating the Padres in Game 3 to watch me and the boys sing.
I will. I would look forward to doing that, sir. I assure you. In fact, I'll just put it on the split screen on my YouTube TV, so I can do both. That's
perfect.
what I'll do. So, sign me up. Learn more about everything that PD is doing when you go to patrickdavismusic.com. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram. PD Music is the way to do that. Safe travels. Our best to Mr. Furyk down there in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. Safe travels across the country too. We'll when you back in Columbia.
Oh man, I'll be back in a couple weeks. I got some things going on, so maybe I'll come and harass you guys at the station. I'd love to. I like to talk, trash to you there. And but I really appreciate you guys having me on. And like I said, nothing but love to all the South Carolina folks. There's a lot of people in the upstate that still don't have power, and I know it's been a struggle the past week or so. So nothing but love, guys, and thanks for having me.
You bet,
go
man.
Cox and go Braves.
Yes, sir.
Bye,
Good
boys.
stuff. That's our buddy Patrick Davis. Again, patrickdavismusic.com. Get back. Sorry.
That's a good stuff.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great. Always fun. And big fan. Big Gamecock fan. But I think most people knew that around here.
Oh, yeah. That's why I referred to it as his most important
Yes.
occupation. A man of many jobs, but that is the most important one.
Come back on the other side. We'll stay with the Gamecocks. Get you a little sound from Dowell Loggins, and especially Elijah wants you to hear a couple of things from Clayton White on how he wants to attack the Ole Miss offense. You're listening to the Postgame Show. AAA Heating and Air has an exciting opportunity for you. Do you have a really old, my word here, crappy HVAC system? Do you not, did you buy the house and it was already kind of, Well, guess what? You might be able to get a brand new system on AAA Heating and Air. How, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did. Here's how. You go to myoldAir.com, myoldAir.com. Find the entry form there. Tell them a little bit about what's going on. And for every 100 entries, AAA Heating and Air is going to draw a lucky winner for a brand new HVAC system at their house. Now, listen, you can always use them for the great service they provide, whether it's a quick repair or a brand new system. But now a chance to win something brand new. Again, learn more about everything they do. Log on to myoldAir.com. See all the terms and rules. And good luck from AAA Heating and Air. 18 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Always fun talking to Patrick Davis. Appreciate his time. Pete Iacobelli of the AP joined us in the 3 o'clock hour talking Carolina Ole Miss, and we'll get back into some of that for you. Ryan hits me on Twitter, not Ryan Brewer, because Ryan Brewer wouldn't want to do this. He would just want to beat people up.
He wants to hit you in real life.
Yep. Ryan says, this goes back to the discussion of Ole Miss using the, I'm injured.
Call it the Fred
technique
from SpongeBob. My leg.
Well, I think of, like Caddyshack. My arm, it's broken. That could be a fractured ulna. I'm afraid you forfeit. Ryan says, we should just implement the stretcher crew like they used to use in soccer. As soon as somebody from Ole Miss fakes an injury, have a stretcher crew sprint out, pick them up, and keep the game moving. Genius.
Yeah. The only thing is we'll have to get a stronger stretcher than the ones they use in the soccer game.
Yeah, because if it's
Those are a little flimsier.
If it's a big man, well, then you know what? Get the little truck.
The gator?
Yeah.
Get the gator out there?
Yeah. You still got to pick that dude up, but this is genius because when you do that, it's like, all right, come on, let's get you on the stretcher. I mean, you're clearly hurt. You need a stretcher,
sir. You are injured.
I mean,
We
look
need to
at
get
you
off of here.
I was afraid for you. It's like I said about the guy. I think it was for Cal. I wish I could remember. I just remember it was a Pac-12 game, like 5-6 years ago. I don't know when there's a lot of Pac-12 schools running those tempo offenses, man. And some dude, again, big guy, he's just walking off the field perfectly normally.
I think you see a coach doing the get down signal.
Yeah. And again, it looked like the guy had been sniped. Like, oh, man.
I want someone who I could really buy into it. The way Dylan Brooks really bought into flopping. Let's get the theatrics. Like, be jogging off the field and then just, like, grab the leg, and hit the deck.
You've now, I'm going to go deep dive here, but you would love these. Now, many of you have heard of the Ted Lasso TV series, but before they had the TV series, there were 2 like short films that Jason Sudeikis made for NBC Sports to promote their Premier League coverage. And in the second one, it has not gone well for Ted, and he is no longer managing in the Premier League. He's managing a girls' youth team, but he's teaching them how to flop. And so he and they all do. They all go like, like that. It's like, there you go. Now you got it.
That's it. That's the way to sell it.
And that's what you got. You got to really just own it, man. Like roll around, scream.
Act like your season is over.
We're seeing more basketball guys do it, but I've said this before too, and I mean this in a funny way, but I'm not going to do a German accent or anything. But I just remember in I think it was the '94 World Cup, the Germans were really good about that, and we were like, I'll do a little German accent, like, I must have a yellow card, or my injury will not be fixed and healed. I
am so injured,
but only the yellow card.
We are all healed.
And then and so if you see the ref show the yellow card, like that German dude pops right back up.
Sound like Heimlich from A Bug's Life.
Right? Yeah, you are all little ants. But you gotta. So Ryan, I like your idea.
I like that.
Get the stretcher out there. And go like, all right, buddy. Hey, come on. Like, let's get you off of here now. We don't
act like it's a life-saving.
Yeah. Like really get out there with some urgency. Get like a doctor out there, but instead of like the doctor that's wearing like the regular like pants or like even like sometimes you'll get a doctor.
We need
in
a white
game.
coat out there.
Yeah. Like I don't even need you white coat. I need you with like the little surgery hat on and like the scrubs. I need you out there running, man. Like already have the gloves on.
For some dramatic effect, already have some blood on the gloves.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I need you like in I'm ready for surgery mode. Like, let's go.
Like you're saying, if we're gonna fake injuries, we need to go all out. Don't like go full bore. Don't half-ass anything here.
You get like the nurses that have the little shower cap. Get out there, man. The little things on their shoes.
And then they're right back out the next play.
Yeah. This is a good idea. So Ryan, I'm here. I'm here for it.
No, I think Ryan has the idea of the day.
I don't know who we
I
need to
approve.
talk to. I think Prisma Health is South Carolina's medical sponsor.
We can provide some doctors.
The folks at Prisma, y'all get on that. And listen, here's the thing. Prisma, y'all, since this is all going to be, some form of acting anyway, probably at times. Let's just work with the USC drama department.
Oh
Just
man,
get
this
them
is their time to shine.
Get them a bunch of
Yes.
scrubs, right? And just get them out there acting like doctors, running out there and all right, even get a light, all right, well, listen, we might need to do surgery right now, buddy. You okay? That looks like a knee. Yeah.
Hey, for those who know, Ole Miss has done a really good job of celebrating.
What would Ole Miss do? What would Lane do? What the hell are they doing? I was well, your guy was hurt, man. We're trying to help.
Sir, back the sideline up. We need room.
Yeah.
We need room.
Yeah, and then
Give him
Lane,
some room. Give him some room, coach.
When a guy's really hurt, the coach will go stand over him, right? When a dude is hurt, the coach is out there too. How often does Lane go out there? That's the thing. Mark the number of times Lane walks out onto the field to check on his injured player.
That's when you know it's serious.
Yeah. So, I'm here for this. Will it matter? I'd like to think so.
Maybe. I mean, I want at least one person to do the full Paul Pierce thing where we have the wheelchair out, take him to the locker room, and then they're back out 20 minutes later and playing the game of their life.
Right.
Still.
And again, should Carolina
by that.
You know what? Should we do a flash poll?
I'm always down for a flash poll.
I might do a flash poll. Should Carolina follow the same script? Will Shane let them do that? You may as well. Listen, I hate this. I don't like it in any sport.
It's become part of almost all
it
sports
has.
and games.
I mean, at some point, baseball needs to do it.
Is there an incentive to fake injuries in baseball?
I don't know. But out of nowhere, if a pitcher's just really dealing and you can tell he's got his rhythm going, just on
a swing and a miss, just be like,
you just fall down. What's wrong? Something, I don't know. And then the pitcher gets all, because pitchers get really impatient, man.
They do.
Very much creatures of habit.
Which is good because baseball does have an issue of their games being too short. They need games to be longer.
Yeah, they've done such a good job. Right. They've done such a good job of that.
Historically, not having the games long.
But I mean, basketball, football, soccer. I can't tell you if this, I don't know, you lacrosse fans, let me know. Do dudes go down in lacrosse? Oh, that hurt. What's wrong? I don't know. This hurts. Okay.
It just hurts. All right, let's sit here for 10 minutes.
Right. But everybody is doing it these days. But again, baseball should implement this. What if, we'll talk about, there's a NASCAR story, but it has nothing to do with racing. Well,
hard to do that in NASCAR.
Well, I don't know. You just pull over.
Well, see, then if nobody else is faking it, then they're just gaining laps on you.
I guess there's not quite a way to do it.
There's not.
That's too bad.
There's a car injury.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Those are called flat tires.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Blowouts.
I'm just trying to find ways for everybody to be able to
milk clock and game the system.
Yeah.
Now, if you're able to figure out a way to do that in NASCAR, then I think you might make yourself a lot of money. That takes a little more brain power to figure out.
Well, you sue them. Because that's what's happening. If you hadn't heard that story, well, I'll have that as part of the 5 o'clock headlines.
That's our way. I guess.
That's a way to slow something down, if nothing else. So yeah, all right. The stretcher crew.
Hey, there's gonna be a role for everybody in that stadium on Saturday.
Carolina medical staff,
everyone.
Prisma Health, y'all get on that. And again, sprint out there, like he says, sprint out.
Like you were saving lives, baby.
Yeah.
Treat every injury or anytime somebody goes down as if it's the worst one you've ever seen.
Absolutely. All right, tell you what, we'll come back on the other side, get you some sound from Clayton White, who spoke today. How can the Gamecocks, on a more normal level of football, slow down Ole Miss?
I know, a football way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things that Clayton we've already heard one cut today. Now we got, Kentucky slowed them down. What can we do? Elijah's picked out a couple of good cuts he wants you to hear. We'll do that when the post-game show returns. Let me tell you about the great folks, Janet and Bob Keene and their crews at the Joint Chiropractic Centers all across the Midlands of South Carolina. The goal at the Joint is to improve the overall health of patients with affordable, convenient chiropractic care and help you maintain and prevent reoccurring problems. Listen, if you've never been to see a chiropractor before, an initial visit at the Joint, that includes a consultation, an exam, and an adjustment, is just $29, and you don't have to make an appointment. You can literally walk in. They're open 10 to 7, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4 on Saturdays. Say, hey, I've never been. I have some questions. I'd like to see what's up. $29. You'll get all those things. Ask those questions. And then you can get monthly plans that can keep you feeling good all year long. If you travel out of town, there are Joint Chiropractic Centers all across the country, too. 4 here in Columbia, Harbison, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, off Killian in the Northeast, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. And remember, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at The Joint. Check them out at thejoint.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to you today that might be causing some issues on the roadways. We'll go ahead and start here in Richland County. We have an accident on US 176 at Broad River Road near John Eliezer Road. I hope I pronounced that right. Probably didn't. Got another one on Old Garner's Ferry Road at Garner's Ferry Road. I guess the not old one. An accident there causing some minor traffic backup. Still have one on Clemson Road at US 1 near 2 Notch Road. Had one there yesterday that caused some minor backup as well. And we still have one on Bookman Road at 2 Notch Road as well.
Talking Carolina Ole Miss, how to potentially help out just in case Ole Miss uses the injury tactic. And I never, in all seriousness for a minute, look, if somebody's hurt, somebody's hurt. It's just the unfortunate part of this, and Sean McDonough was doing the game the other day. I think, was it he and McElroy? And they mentioned that very thing. This is, sort of the boy that cried wolf syndrome here, and you need to be careful with that. Because every once in a while, somebody's going to actually be hurt. And then what, right? So,
a lot of funny texts on the text line.
Yeah, what do you got?
I mean, we've got some real doozies here for that one. One, we got one text that said, not advocating for it, but since soccer was brought up, what would football look like with a running clock? And I just kind of responded on there saying, could you imagine an SEC officiating crew trying to calculate how much extra time is needed at the end of each half for stoppage time? It would break the brains.
That'll be the red hat's job
involved. That would be tough.
The red hat can hold up the sign at the end just like they do in soccer. You know?
Oh, would not even want to know exactly. The
I'm here for it though. I'm here for running clock.
The knot tying mentally that would happen. Yeah. Jeff says, how many times has Lane come out, put his hands on the player to hold them down while it looks like he is being comforting? You haven't been hurt long enough. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. I'm comforting you. Tony says, get the chaplain to run out too.
There you go. Yes. Yes. Last rites.
Oh, maybe hire some actors.
Can you just imagine that? Like what would Ole Miss do, or any school? Like if you just run out there, almost like the circus or something, right? Like just send a whole like in the clown car, like out of nowhere, but have it, have them all in scrubs run out there. They would go like, what the hell is going on out here? Like, well, I mean, he's hurt. We're trying to help.
We're trying to help.
He's just got a little thing. Oh, we didn't know. He looks hurt.
I do like the a nameless texter said they need to just have a hole up here and suck down the injured player under the field and then resume play, like a vortex.
Well, in a couple 100 years, I'll do that.
Well, once we get that technology,
yeah,
I think that could be very doable.
Just get a robot vehicle to drive out there, scoop the guy up, see what happens. I'm here for that.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, we'll see.
That's good. Good stuff.
We'll see.
Bringing our A games here.
But in the meantime, so keep them coming. Instead of a flash poll, just hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line at 803-404-6100.
We're creating a really good scenario.
Your thoughts on how to, if not curb this practice, then how to deal with it accordingly. And again, I'm kind of serious. If you want to add to it here, this was where the flash poll thing came in. Should Carolina try it too? I don't like it. I don't like it for anybody at any level. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't like this practice, but it has become a thing.
Going to match their freak in terms of
now listen, this is where you might not be so disappointed that this is a day game because it'll take 5 hours to play.
Because everyone will be leaving Willie B at 1 a.m.
Right. Oh, this game started at 8? No, 3:30. What happened? Fake injuries. How many? About 100.
A lot.
All of them.
Every person that has appeared in this game has been injured.
137 fake injuries. That's what we'll say. But in the meantime, there will be football played, and in all seriousness, Ole Miss likes again, tempo and rhythm. Tempo and rhythm. That's what they like to do when it comes to the offensive side of things. So, you've picked out a few good ones from Coach White on what he'd like to do to at least thwart some of those practices.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of like what Ole Miss likes to do, I mean, a lot of it, they throw the ball a lot and they run a lot of RPOs, which sometimes will create more passes than others just based off what's being read. But it's fascinating to look at this Ole Miss team with all the talent they have at their skill position players and seeing that Trey Harris gets a lot of those targets. And you look at it, it's like, wow, this guy gets a lot of targets and he also gets a lot of yards after the catch. In this passing game, when they're clicking, is electric. And you look at Ole Miss's first drive against Kentucky, they marched down the field seamlessly, and things kind of slowed down from there. Kentucky's secondary definitely made some key adjustments and kept them from just scoring at every possession. So one of the things I was fascinated by hearing from Clayton, and this is why I asked Shane this question yesterday, is how to defend against a pass-catching unit like Ole Miss's. And Clayton was asked this today, and here was his response when kind of asked about the coverage aspect of playing against Ole Miss in this passing game.
Yep, to me, coverage in front, all that stuff go hand in hand together. The quicker we get to the quarterback, the less they have to cover, and vice versa. The slower we get there, the longer they have to cover. That's every week in this league. I do think, we played, Kentucky had a nice trio of receivers, so does Ole Miss have a good quattro, maybe 4 or 5 really good players that can beat you short passes. They break tackles well, and they also can catch the long ball, and they do a great job of making you miss.
You know, I was just looking at the stats, too. You've been talking about Trey Harris a lot. Trey Harris has 49 catches. The next 4 receivers on the list have 45 combined. So this guy is not just getting the bulk. He has 49, Caden Lee 16, Juice Wells 14, Caden Prescorn, 2 Cadens in the top 4 there. That's interesting. Has 10. Jordan Watkins has 5.
Yeah, and in terms of targets, like Trey Harris dominates like the bulk of them. Like there's been 167 passes attempted by Ole Miss this year, and Trey Harris has been the target on 60 of them. I did the math, so you don't have to, Jay Phillips. That's a 35.9% target share that Trey Harris has. And for those fantasy football players out there, if you're drafting players and receivers, you're like, oh, someone's getting almost 36% of the targets. I want that guy on my team. But then you look at the next 2 closest. So Trey Harris has 60. The next closest are Juice Wells with 21, Caden Lee with 19. So together, all 3 of those guys take up a good chunk of the offense.
Trey Harris is also incredibly, I say they with him too, incredibly consistent. In their 5 games this year, they're 4-1. I'm going in order from oldest to most recent. 8, 9, 10, 11, 11. So, I mean, he's going to get his, right?
Yeah. He definitely has done a good job of getting.
You know, how do you look to? I mean, this is O'Donnell Fortune's assignment by and large.
You could assume, yeah, I would assume just because he's been the best in coverage in terms of cornerback, right? He's got the highest Pro Football Focus grade, but you don't have to use Pro Football Focus to watch this team and kind of come to the conclusion that your best shutdown corner is O'Donnell. OD's having a fantastic season, right, in terms of playing somebody in coverage. And you're going to have to play a lot of these guys deeper in coverage because the average depth of all these targets that we're alluding to is over 12 yards, to give you an idea. So, like, I think it is 41% of the passes that they throw do travel more than at least 10 yards in the air. Like, they love to throw the ball down the field. I think it's 42.9% of the passes that Ole Miss throws travel more than 10 yards in the air. So you need to be great in coverage. But going back to Clayton's point and what Shane's point was yesterday when I asked him that same question was you got to be able to tackle.
Right.
Because this team gets yards after the catch really well. Don't let a 10-yard catch be a 30-yard catch and have that happen at the end because those yards will ultimately add up. And if you're South Carolina, O'Donnell Fortune, in terms of percentage of tackles he attempts that are broken, is 27%. Can't be that on Saturday.
Right.
You got to connect on a lot more of those tackles. Once you get a hand on a receiver, you got to make sure you get him to the ground.
On the note of big plays, cut number 15 that we have from Clayton today, please, sir. This is Clayton on, being able to minimize the big plays.
Yes, obviously them catching it and us not knocking it down is the one. Just being funny. I'm sorry, but I would say obviously a couple of times. One time against ODU, it was a play that we didn't get to play in fast enough. I didn't get to play in fast enough, and we got confused. Kentucky had a nice 42-yard play on OD. To me, it's just coming down and getting those reps. Beginning of the year, we got to do a good job of really staying on top and playing the ball, and obviously once again the pressure and the coverage go hand in hand.
So what did Carolina do in terms of working on themselves for things like that, in terms of being better tacklers? Is being fresh this week going to help? Against LSU, I don't want to use it as an excuse. Again, that the second half adjustment that the LSU's offense made paid big dividends, and it was really hot. Won't be as hot this weekend. Again, I'm not saying, if it was not as hot, it would have, no, that's not where I'm going. But it can be a contributing factor. Mm-hmm. All those kind of things. But, again, I don't know. chicken or egg kind of a thing. But disrupting their rhythm, it just seems to me, is going to be of paramount importance for South Carolina.
Yeah. And a lot of this is going to be getting pressure on Jackson Dart, too. I feel like if you're able, and this kind of goes back to what Pete was telling us, right? I mean, if you can get pressure on Jackson Dart, you're going to really open yourself up to be a lot more flexible defensively because you're not going to have the same stress on your secondary. And if you go back and listen to Clayton, he led off with the front end helps the back end. They go hand in hand in this. And if you get pressure on Jackson Dart, he's not going to be as effective. There's not a quarterback in college football that throws better under pressure than they do in the pocket. I mean, those are rare type of quarterbacks that end up playing on Sundays, right? But Jackson Dart's one of those that when he plays really good competition, last year's a perfect example, that when Georgia got in his face, he struggled. When Alabama got in his face, they struggled. They scored 13 and 10 points in both of those games. Those were their 2 losses, and the offense was non-existent. I don't think he necessarily struggled per se against Kentucky. He didn't play his greatest game, but Kentucky got pressure on him on 38% of the snaps. There wasn't a team in those 4 games leading up to it that got more than 25% of the snaps to get pressure on Jackson Dart. You pressure him, you're going to slow him down. You make him have to operate quicker. So much of Ole Miss's offense are RPOs and reads. Naturally, the less time you have to read, the less likely you are to make the best choice. It's going to start with the pressure. It will end with how the defense is able to tackle the guys that make catches. Because like you said earlier, and it's a really good point, Trey Harris will get his.
Yeah.
If he gets less than 9 catches, I'll be shocked, really.
Yeah. And not only does he get his catches, but he's doing it, I think, only one game at Wake, and he had 94 at Wake. Every other game he's had at least, he's had well over 100 yards.
Only 94 yards.
Yeah, on 10 catches. Come back on the other side. Why did Central Michigan's quarterback coach resign? And what does that have to do with anything? It's one of those dun-dun-dun kind of things we'll talk about when the postgame show returns. About to go back in. That's my second German accent of the hour.
Zwei. Das ist German for two.
It's not going to happen very often, is it?
We loves this music.
That's right. Now is the time on Sprockets Wenn wir dance. Welcome back into the postgame show.
The Washington Wizards basketball team.
Jay and Elijah with you. I'll just do my South Carolina accent now.
That's not as fun.
No, it's not. Jake Costner, no relation to Kevin, has resigned as
sure?
the Central Michigan quarterbacks coach. You may be like, dude, SEC country, why are we talking about, one of the northernmost MAC schools? Well,
This is a MAC fandom show.
according to Chris Vanini, national college football writer for The Athletic, it's a move that may or may not be connected to the ongoing Connor Stallion sign-stealing investigation. Now, you may say, well, may or may not. Let's put it this way, kids. There's a belief that it is, and that this is Central Michigan now beginning to mitigate potential future punishment from the NCAA. That's just all speculation at this point in time. Connor Stallions, of course, quit last season, midway through the Michigan football campaign.
Forced to quit.
It's not sign. Remember, it's not the sign stealing investigation. I hate that Chris. It's easier. It's easier, simpler to describe it that way. It's not the sign stealing that's the problem. It's the obtaining of information.
Hey, in the war of words between certain college football insiders that pride themselves on getting things right and precise with their words, maybe Chris needs to think.
Words mean things.
They mean stuff.
It is it's how the information was obtained. But now an open records request has found Mr. Costner's resignation letter. Please accept this letter as my notice that I have made the decision to part ways with CMU to pursue other opportunities. My final day will be September 15th, 2024. Yes, this email was dated the day before the season began. I'm going to pursue other opportunities the day before the season begins. CMU doesn't comment much more on this. Of course, if you're wondering, well, how is Central Michigan involved in the Connor Stallions investigation? Last season, during a game against Michigan State, video was obtained that showed someone that looked an awful lot like Connor Stallions, but with a goatee and sunglasses at a night game. You can be Corey Hart, wear your sunglasses at night.
You can. Hey, I have sensitive eyes. Sometimes I want to in a bright stadium.
Some even believe, it's not in this article, but I have read other articles, that there was, it's one of those sunglasses with the little built-in camera. There are several, including Jake Costner, several coaches on the CMU staff that used to work for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, including head coach Jim McElwain, who, remember, after the game, don't know anything about the sign stealer guy.
All you had to do is say, yeah, that was Timmy. That's our boy.
Or say nothing.
He's here all the time.
You're like, I don't know what the heck y'all are talking about. That's what I would have said.
Everybody that's on the sideline is supposed to be on the sideline.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I'm here to coach a football game.
I'm telling you, I think we should be hired by some of these programs that if you're trying to get away with something you're not supposed to do, we can be consultants.
Yeah. Well, like Dabo said the other day about the hurricane, he's like, hey, they didn't talk to me about that. I'm just here to coach football, and that's the right answer.
It's a good one.
It's the right answer.
He's well trained.
McElwain said that Stallion's name was not on any sideline passes handed out. He had no idea how he ended up on the sideline, if it was indeed Stallion's. Most believe that it was. Football Scoop reported in July that Costner was going to leave, but again, waited until the end of August to do so. Now, remember, Stallions has said, I was not, or I don't recall being at the Central Michigan State game. And if you've seen the documentary, and I
Must have
have
been wasted. The only explanation. That guy must have been just absolutely
full-on gear.
hammered.
Don't forget that either, y'all. He's in full-on gear.
Hammered.
Hat, and he's got the coach's gear. Remember, coaches wear different stuff than the fans at games. Now, some of you may be able to obtain what the coaches are wearing, but the coaches all like to, typically be in the same stuff.
Well, usually if you do obtain that, you're still in the stands.
Yes. Fair point. So, the draft notice of allegations alleges it was Stallions on the sideline. Central Michigan otherwise not commenting at this point in time. But it is interesting that maybe somebody knows something. Jake Costner helping Wild Stallions get his sideline pass and his gear.
Would make a lot of sense.
Again, where do you get the gear? Right?
It's given to you. That's what it's given to you.
And I don't want to sit here and say, like, man, I want all these people to fry. Like, I don't care about that anymore, y'all. It's done. Michigan won the title. Michigan's really good. Like, I really don't care too much about any of that. I just want to, it's like the number one thing about Connor Stallions is how brazen he is. And at some point, I just want to see, like, how all of this ends.
It's more fascinating than anything else.
Yeah.
Once because this type of stuff happens a lot, but it's usually covered up pretty well, right? College football has a really wild history of
Wild
cheating.
Stallions?
So Wild Stallions-ish history in terms of getting away with certain cheating scandals or not getting away with certain cheating scandals, and getting to be behind the curtain for one.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is. It has been. We'll see how it goes. Headlines of the day and more from the Carolina coordinators coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to. They're causing some issues on the roadways, but I'll start off with some good news first, and that is that the accident on 26 West between Sunset Boulevard and Exit 110 and I-126 exit 108A has been cleared. So traffic moving much smoother through that area. We still have some active accidents causing active traffic jams. One on South Beltline Boulevard at Rosewood Drive near Highway 16. Another one on I-77 southbound at Percival Road near exit 15. One on I-20 westbound at Fairfield Road near exit 70. Another one on Forest Drive at Highway 12 and Percival Road. One on Columbiana Drive at Lake Murray Boulevard. And lastly, one on Atlas Road at US 76 and Garner's Ferry Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the postgame show, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Gamecock coordinators Dowell Loggins and Clayton White speaking today ahead of Carolina hosting the Ole Miss Rebels. Saturday, of course, 3:30 over at Williams-Brice. All-day coverage here on the game starting at 10:30 over at the Adam Vance party lot, where, again, Sound and Image's own Adam Vance, so should be running around with a lampshade on his head. That's what I'm told the party lot is all about.
Yes.
I don't know these things for certain.
You'd be correct. Okay. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, my friend. It gets wild.
The monogrammed Adam Vance.
Yes. That
lampshade
he keeps
on the
getting head. Accosted by people asking about those monogram lampshades that he wears on his head at the party lot of Sound and Images for this specific pregame show that we'll be doing. Tyler and I will be starting us off at 10:30.
That's good, 10:30. But the coordinators speaking today, we'll start with a cut here from Dowell Loggins on what he sees from the Mississippi defense.
They're an aggressive group. The front seven's really good. It's as talented as any group that we're going to face. And I think after the Kentucky game, I told you guys that defense at Kentucky was really good and really well coached, and got a ton of respect for Brad White. Some AD needs to hire him and get him out of the conference. But this is another huge challenge. The front, obviously, we're not doing some things offensively. Protection, those things that we're going to have to work on. We're going to face an extremely talented front that's done a good job in recruiting, done a very good job in the transfer portal. These guys play hard. And the thing for those guys is they play complementary football in a different way than we play it. They play with a lot of leads. They've got a really explosive offense. So when you're playing with a lead, you get to rush the passer. It's almost like I go back to my days in Tennessee when we played the Colts, and they got Freeney and Mathis, and they got those two wideouts and Peyton Manning, and all of a sudden it's 14-0, and those guys get to pin their ears back and rush. And I thought Kentucky did a great job trying to play complementary football that way. But these guys play complementary football a different way, and they've married their three phases together very well.
Going to be interesting because I think we don't talk enough, maybe we in the college football world, not just we here on this show or at this station, about the Ole Miss defense. I think there is such an identity right now about that offense that you don't always think about the defense, but credit to Lane and the staff, as Dowell just said, for what they've done in recruiting, because in order to win a championship, not just win some games or get a nice bowl, you got to play D, and for a while, Ole Miss was not. Lane knows that. Knowing it and doing it are two different things.
Significantly, and that's my favorite thing about like what Ole Miss did from last year this year was kind of recognizing that the one thing separating you from the teams at the top of your league, which are the teams that are also at the top of the country, because you are in the Southeastern Conference, is how good they are on the line. And, it helped that Jared Ivey came back, who's a really good pass rusher. But being able to get someone like Princely U from Florida, who is a guy who will be in the NFL one day. How good of a pass rusher in the NFL, we'll see, because those are the best pass rushers in the world. But this Ole Miss defense is incredibly underrated in terms of what grabs the headlines, just because that offense, when it's clicking, puts up stupid video game numbers on a per-game basis. But one thing I don't think we talk about enough in the Kentucky game, it's not, oh, wow, Kentucky, scored 20 points, which, when you think about it, the first 4 games of the year, this defense gave up only 22 points, 5.5 a game. I did the math, so you don't have to.
Thank you.
And then gave up 20 against Kentucky, but it's not because Kentucky just lit the world on fire on offense. I mean, they only picked up 4.5 yards per play. That's not much.
Right.
That's not much at all. They were still 4 of 16 on third down. Ole Miss defense still played really well, and was able to put a lot of pressure on Brock Vandagriff. But I think the big question now is, can they be able to do that on the road? They haven't played in a road environment like they're going to be playing in on Saturday. And when you separate some of the numbers, I mean, you kind of have to take the first 4 games with a grain of salt, because you played Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Go Blue Raiders, Wake Forest on the road, and Georgia Southern. And the numbers, once you get from those games in terms of the amount of times they were able to get pressure on the opposing quarterback, was a lot different than it was against Kentucky. They had season low in blitz percentage in terms of just how many guys they sent to the quarterback in a game against Kentucky, and how many times they actually got pressure on Brock Vandagriff on a per play basis. So it's maybe a little misleading when you look at the total numbers in aggregate of how this defense has played this year, but the truth kind of lies a little below that. This is still a really good defensive front. That's the strength of the defense.
Yeah.
And with those pass rushers, like Dowell said, if they get a lead, that helps them sit on leads a little easier.
Yeah, and like I say, I just think maybe not talked about as much, but something to certainly keep a sharp eye on. Meantime, we'll have more from Dowell coming up during our 5:15 segment. Let's get you a cut here from Clayton as well, Coach White, on some of the things that he saw from Kentucky's success against Mississippi last week.
I think it's hard to kind of change a ton of your offense. You can have some wrinkles here, you can have some wrinkles there. The same. At this point in the season, you can add some plays that you had in the past. You could bring some. You could come up with a couple new plays. But I think for the most part, teams want to be themselves. Teams want to focus on them and not the opponent. That's kind of our mindset. It's really about us. We got to go out here and do our job and make sure we understand what we're facing. Let's not be surprised by what we're facing. Make sure we know what we're going into. And I think just playing our game, being aggressive, and making sure that our guys are on the same page. And to me, most coaches in this league, it's about them and their players. It's not really about what the other person is doing. So I'm pretty sure they're focused on what they do best.
Again, we'll talk more tomorrow, and when we speak with Langston on Friday about what you do. And we talked to Ryan a little bit about it yesterday. What you do to work on you in an off week. And you've already hit on some of the biggest numbers, Elijah. South Carolina must tackle better, period.
Mm-hmm.
And did you work on that? Is it is it technique? Is it positioning? Is it being gassed? Is it check? I don't know. And quite honestly, it's not for me to say this. Fans and players, they're not going to care.
No.
Tackle.
Exactly. And
that's it. Tackle.
And that's kind of going to be part of the onus is going to be on the offense too, right? I mean, look, this defense has been lights out all season with the exception of one quarter, the LSU third quarter, right? Where they ran 25 plays to your 6, and you had a lot of missed tackles in that quarter, to the point where anybody in that stadium and watching on TV could tell your defense was tired. Shane Beamer did not run away from that after the game, saying, yeah, there was a fatigue factor in that third quarter of the defense. Debo Williams even admitted to it, 'cause that was the question that I asked him after that game, is if fatigue had any impact on that third quarter. And he said, yeah, we're human. Sometimes we can get tired. And it makes sense, because over half the total yards LSU got in that game occurred in the 25 plays they ran in that third quarter. And if you keep going 3 and out against this Ole Miss team, you're going to have similar quarters in that game. And I don't think it matters if it's the first quarter where it happens, the second, third, or fourth. It don't really matter which quarter that occurs in. A separation can be made in a quarter to be able to ultimately do you in. You got to avoid that. So the offense has to at least sustain some drives to be able to avoid that type of play discrepancy and get away from that fatigue, because we already know that Ole Miss, when that offense is at its best, is running 70-plus plays in any given game. It's gonna take a lot to be able to have to do that. And what Clayton said there, too, at the very end, I think is probably the biggest piece that I got from it was Ole Miss is working on themselves. I don't think they're changing too much going into this game, because they made some mistakes where they shot themselves in the foot to keep them from winning that game against Kentucky.
Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day. And by the way, as I said, we'll have more sound from both coordinators coming up for you in just a few minutes, and we'll continue it into the drive around the SEC as we also look at some of the bigger games this weekend in conference play. Right now, I'm going to take you to NASCAR. We don't talk a lot of NASCAR around here, but big news. 2 NASCAR teams, one of them that is co-owned by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, has filed a federal antitrust lawsuit today against NASCAR and its current chairman, Jim France. They claim a new charter system limits competition by unfairly binding teams to the series, its tracks, and its suppliers. Jordan has hired Jeffrey Kessler. You might know that name. This is the attorney who years ago helped usher in NFL free agency. More recently, he is helping in the House case against the NCAA. He's done other big things in sports, too. Says the lawsuit, at least in part, quote, "The France family and NASCAR are monopolistic bullies, and bullies will continue to impose their will to hurt others until their targets stand up and refuse to be victims. That moment has now arrived." Just a few weeks ago, NASCAR presented its teams, according to this report from the AP, its final offer on what is essentially a revenue-sharing model. 13 of the teams signed, with most saying they did so under duress or they felt threatened into doing so. But Jordan and Hamlin said they were not going to do that and instead would stand up to the France family. I'll pause here and remind everybody, whether you're a big NASCAR fan or not. If you're a big NASCAR fan, you already know what I'm getting ready to say. But if you're not, you're just kind of casual or you don't even pay a lot of attention, NASCAR is not like the NFL or Major League Baseball or any other major professional sports entity where the owners of the teams collectively get together and make the decisions from a business standpoint. NASCAR is a private business owned by the France family. Started in the 1940s. It has always been run by the family. It has always been a private business. It's kind of like they run a private club, and you can be a member, but you don't really get to decide what the rules of the club are. We decide the rules, and we'll tell you where you're going to participate. We'll tell you how much money is there to be won or lost, as it were, because of the costs involved. And let's face it, this is an incredibly expensive sport. In fact, a lot of the owners quoted in this story say, I hadn't made money in years. And remember, too, you see, whether you like it or not, you see all those stickers and all those patches on driver uniforms and all over the cars. They got to go do that themselves. NASCAR doesn't really help with that. NASCAR has certain sponsors for NASCAR, but guess what? The Frances keep that money, at least the bulk of it. They also own a bunch of the tracks. I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner. I really am. And there have been some terrible stories of especially how the original Mr. France bullied drivers and teams. There was even a walkout in the 60s. And he was like, all right, fine. So instead of like strikes in the NFL or baseball where you had like scabs come in because there's a union, he was like, I'll just get drivers to drive. I don't care who's driving. I got people in the stands want to see cars go around. They can't see you. They don't know you. They don't care. Now, they do to some degree, right? But it'll be interesting to see where this goes this time. NASCAR is not going to become a consortium of teams because of this, I don't believe. Because, again, it is a private business. But I don't know if enough people really understand that they can do whatever the heck they want. They, the France family. And quite honestly, many, many times they do and they have.
I mean, if the France family has any knowledge of their name, they should be no stranger to unrest and upheaval.
Well, I don't know if they're that type of historian.
Clearly.
But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. But in my personal opinion here, and I don't really try to offer up too much of these during a news segment, but good for Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. I'd like to see where this goes next. I genuinely would. And so we shall. And will there be a settlement? One of the reasons they sued Mr. France currently is because they want his financial records too. How much you making from NASCAR? Not just how much does NASCAR make, how much you making?
How much you got?
Yeah. And so Discovery can bring some of that out unless they don't want it to. And then there's a settlement. So we'll see. All right, real quick here. Baseball. Braves lost last night 4-0. Braves and Pods go at it again tonight. Freed versus Musgrove at 8:30 is the start time. As we speak, the Detroit Tigers have taken a 5-2 lead against the Houston Astros going into the ninth inning. Tigers win. They upset Houston and move on to play Cleveland. The Royals have a 1-0 lead on Baltimore. They won that game by the same score last night. This one's bottom 2 in Baltimore. And tonight at 7:30, the Mets look to go up 2-0 on the Milwaukee Brewers. That's a look at the baseball wild card games here today. All right, that's our Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327 for any and all of your home theater needs and so much more. Home security, they can help you out, man. Great people. I love them. Couldn't live without them. 803-948-8327. That's Integrated Media. More from Dowell Loggins and Clayton White looking ahead to the Gamecocks and the Rebels when the postgame show returns. Let me tell you about our good friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They've been helping folks with banking needs across the Midlands since 1936, whether it's checking, savings, credit cards, car loans, home equity line of credit, a mortgage, student loans, basically money for any reason. Do it with Palmetto Citizens and save money in the process because they're not for profit. That means they return earnings to members in the forms of lower rates and fewer fees for any and all of those banking needs, including things like car loans. And right now, they can finance over 100% of the purchase price on new to 2021 models. They've got great coverage and insurance options dealerships can't beat. So whether it's time for a new vehicle, a new credit card, anything going on in life, do what my wife and I have done. Become members of Palmetto Citizens and work with some great people. 14 locations all across the Midlands and always online. Learn more right now, palmettocitizens.org. Welcome back in. Postgame show continues. Again, Detroit leads Houston 5-2, and Kansas City leads Baltimore 1-0 in the American League playoffs. National League playoffs continuing tonight, including the Atlanta Braves. Touch more on that in just a little bit. Meantime, back into some Gamecock football talk for you here on this Wednesday afternoon. By the way, tomorrow, our good friend Greg Gaston, morning show co-host, Sports 56 in Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Greg and Eli Savoy are regulars on our program, talking all things that portion of the SEC. Again, that's one of the things. Memphis is like a mini Atlanta in the sense that it's a melting pot of multiple fan bases. You know, you've got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, you know, obviously Tennessee fans. But it's funny. And
not many, actually.
Yeah. Like, there are Tennessee fans in Memphis, but the way Tennessee is covered in Memphis is very different than the way it's covered certainly in Knoxville or even in Nashville. It's interesting. It's
notice if you know anybody from Memphis, ask them where they're from. They won't say Tennessee.
They're from Memphis. Yeah, from Memphis.
Memphis is its own.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like its own thing, man.
I'd be willing to bet there is a significantly, not just like a little bit or 1 or 2 percentage points more, significantly more Ole Miss fans that reside in Memphis than there are University of Tennessee.
Well, and people talk about it too. You know, like, I'm not trying to get into like an Elvis discussion, but man, Elvis could have lived anywhere, but like for where Elvis grew up and when Elvis grew up, making it to live in one of Memphis's nice neighborhoods was like making it to Shangri-La. You made it. Like that, and that was why. That's why Graceland is in. You know, I mean, again, Elvis could have lived in Hollywood, or in Miami,
Memphis,
or where. Yeah, but it's like, well, why would I go? I mean, that's. And if you read, you know, I read a lot of John Grisham, and that part of the world that he writes about, like Memphis, man. But anyway, Greg will join us tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And we'll talk some Ole Miss with him. Let's get back into some Dowell Loggins sound right here for you. And let's go to number 3 on the list, please. This is Dowell, South Carolina. Again, self-scouting during the bye week, getting prepped now. What do you do best? And how do you learn about that? Here's what Dowell had to say.
Yeah, the bye week now becomes so much about like just getting healthy versus like there's the head coach does a practice schedule and he comes in and says, hey, this is what we're doing, all those things. What makes it in the NFL, you usually get 20 games. You get these preseason games, these long training camps. Things have changed because of sports science and other things. So you're constantly learning of what your players do well, and you're figuring them out, and you got to put them in those situations. And there's only so many situations you can put them in practice, and you got to figure out when it's off schedule, how will they be? Like we can give them a look on a scout team or prepare them for something, but we can't prepare them for every eventuality. So confidence is born through demonstrated ability. So they got to get out there on the field, and the team determines who it is on Saturdays. You know,
it's interesting that he said it the way he did. Like, the bye week is really just about getting healthy now. It's not quite what it used to be. Mm-hmm. And it's because you just can't afford to have anybody go down. Or if they're already down, well, I can't get them out there and say, well, hey, I need you to go run around on that thing.
You to rest that sucker up.
Yeah, but obviously, Lenoris Sellers' health remains a big point of contention, I think, at this point in time. But I'll let you set up this next one as he talks about quarterbacks.
Yeah, there was a question asked kind of about the dynamic, right? And because Robbie played so well against Akron, does that change the dynamic in the quarterback room? It was a really interesting, discussion, not really discussion, but Hale asked the question, a little interesting back and forth where Dowell kind of busts his chops a little bit. But Hale did ask about, does this change the dynamic with Robbie playing so well against Akron and Lenoris trying to recover from injury? So he kind of asked about that quarterback situation.
We have 5.
What about the main 2?
Injury report comes out tonight. Is that correct? Yes. I like all 5 of them. I think I was proud of the way Robbie came in and played. I'm busting your chops. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I was happy the way Robbie played against Akron. He did a nice job. Played to his strengths. Was calm. he's obviously been well coached with the places he's been at Oregon and Auburn, and came here. He's a guy we have a lot of confidence in, and he did his job. And I was really pleased up the half outside of fumble with the way Lenore's was playing. So I'm excited about the two that are playing right now.
As Dowell mentioned, and we have not talked about it today, it's just kind of become commonplace, but we talked about it yesterday a lot. The availability report will be released tonight around 8 p.m. And they pop it right up on secsports.com. And it's typically the very first thing you see once they put it out there.
Make it easy to find.
Yeah, so you can, there's other places you can go get it, but
unless you call it an injury report on air, they'll hide it from you.
And don't call it the 2-minute warning.
Nope.
But I am. I don't mind the term
personally.
Availability report. That's fine.
Honestly, that might be more accurate.
Yeah, it is.
Because especially with some certain teams that are annual Fulmer Cup contestants, you might have some players that might not be availability for non-injury reasons.
Yes. Yeah, they don't have to put those guys on there, do they?
Not necessarily. Or maybe they do.
I hadn't thought about that.
If you're on the roster but you're not available for whatever reason, I think you should be on the availability report.
That's true. If you're not available, but it should say, well,
like if you're suspended, you're still on the roster.
Yeah, you're unavailable.
But you're unavailable because you suspended.
That's a good point. Let's get one more here. Cut number 1, please. A quick one from Dowell Loggins on what they have been doing to try and minimize sacks and things behind the line.
Yeah, most of them are coming up on third down. I think we have 16. I think 10 of the 16 are on third down. And you go back and you watch them all and you figure out why. And you start with a scheme. And then you start going to each individual position, whether it be offensive line, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, are they holding it too long? Or wide receivers not getting open? Are we putting them in the right situation as a coaching staff? So you evaluate all that and you work to correct it. Today was our third down day, so we got a good work at it today.
We've talked a lot from a defensive perspective. South Carolina must tackle better this weekend. They must also do better on third down on offense. It's just, how much better? I don't know. I mean, 1 or 2% isn't going to really get it done. I'm not saying you got to correct it and go, hey, well, South Carolina was 12 for 14 on third down. No, they're not going to do that either.
That's basically impossible.
But you've got to find ways if you're going to take those real next steps. And I'll say this too, Elijah, and I'm dead serious about this. I understand where we are in the moment relative to teams versus programs. And what Lane Kiffin has been doing the last couple of years has been very good for the program, and this year they have a very good team. But Mississippi should not be looked at long-term nationally as a program that is just superior to South Carolina.
Nope.
And you got to go win a game like this. When Carolina beat that Ole Miss team in 2009, it was part of the propulsion towards bigger things. It still took a little while. You did beat Clemson later that year, and that was a big deal, obviously. And then you went on to 2010 to win the East, et cetera, et cetera. But these are measuring stick games, not so much from a national, top of the food chain perspective, but how you climb out of the middle of the pack. Ole Miss has been doing a little bit of that. You've just done it with Kentucky, and they just beat them. Not trying to apply the transitive property like Shane said yesterday. But if you're South Carolina and you want to be respected more, it's one thing if you pull the upset of a Georgia or a Bama or some such, or beating Tennessee 2 years ago with how the Vols were rolling. But this is the kind of game where you're this is in your place. You need to go win this game, but you're not going to do it if you keep doing the things that get you beat.
Yeah, can't take sacks on third down, and your third downs can't be an average of 12 yards. Now, when evaluating, the health of your offense, I think a good metric for every offense is to see exactly how long your average third down is, because you're going to be better on third down if it's third and manageable as opposed to third in a time zone.
Right.
So when you go from 3rd and 12 as your average third down against Kentucky to 3rd and 8 as your average third down against LSU, and then Akron is Akron, whatever, but it's a better third down situation, then that's at least a pretty good size, or at least a good tell of offensive growth.
Breaking news as I get ready to get into the break. Congratulations to A.J. Hinch, the manager of the Detroit Tigers, the former manager of the Astros. Detroit has just pulled off the upset, sweeping Houston 2-0 in Houston to advance in the American League playoffs. Way to go, Tigers. It's the first time you'll hear me say that in a while. Drive around the SEC is next.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with some bad news, and that's that there are so many accidents to report, I might not be able to get all of them in one report, so I'm going to try my very best. Starting with one on Atlas Road at US 76 and Garners Ferry Road, one on Bower Parkway near Piney Grove Road, one on Columbiana Drive at Lake Murray Boulevard, another accident on Farrow Road at Highway 555 at Hard Scrabble Road, one on Fish Hatchery Road near US 21 and Charleston Highway, one on Forest Drive at Highway 12 and Percival Road, another accident on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at I-77, one on Highway 262 near Lower Richland Boulevard, one on I-20 westbound at Fairfield Road at Exit 70, one on 20 westbound at Broad River Road near Exit 65, one on 26 eastbound at Piney Grove Road near Exit 104, one on 77 southbound at Percival Road near Exit 15, and one on South Beltline Boulevard at Rosewood Drive near Highway 16.
It is Drive Around the SEC time. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. We'll get to some more sound from Clayton White coming up in just a second, but we will go over some of the big games this weekend in conference play. Auburn at Georgia is probably the biggest one. Although the Missouri A&M game is probably the one that should be most competitive. Yeah?
Yeah, you want to hear a take? Jay Phillips?
I do. I like takes.
There will be a top 10 team that loses this weekend. That team will be the Missouri Tigers.
I kind of feel you, and dare I say, quietly, I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah. They haven't played a game away from home. They're like Auburn. They have not left their home stadium all year, but unlike Auburn, they've actually won the football games played at that Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, good for you to schedule that many games at home, but, man, that means you just get backloaded with road games.
Yeah, and this one's going to be a rude awakening. Look, Texas A&M has struggled at times offensively this year. Marcel Reed, a phenomenal high school quarterback in Nashville, got to cover a lot of his career whenever I was working over there, so I've seen him play a lot outside of college, and I think he's doing well enough for Texas A&M to win these games. He's fine, but they've proven that they can win games with him because that defense is pretty good. A&M's got a pretty good defensive front. I think in a hostile environment, when Missouri has not played anyone remotely close to a defense that resembles that, with a defensive mind like Mike Elko, I can definitely see some really weird stuff happening in this game. It's a noon or two.
It's an 11 o'clock local time kick, noon, obviously Eastern. A&M opened at -2. It's up to 2.5, yet the FPI gives Missouri the slight chance to win at 51.7%, and a low over-under total here of only 48.5. So, to your point, defense is expected to rule the day.
It is.
I like A&M's opportunity here.
I love A&M's opportunity here.
And again, I think a lot of people would be here for a Missouri loss.
Oh, certainly. That would shake a lot of things up. That would help that would help teams like Tennessee, Ole Miss. I'm trying to think of other teams that are kind of LSU, teams that are in the middle, that higher middle class of the SEC.
Technically, Georgia is now with the loss
Georgia
already.
is now. That if you're a Georgia fan, you are cheering for Mizzou to get beat by A&M, muddy those waters a little bit.
And by the way, should A&M win the game, they'll go to 3-0 in conference play.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
But a month it is.
Yeah.
October. You know what happens to A&M in late October and November? It gets funky.
The Auburn-Georgia game, big spread. Georgia -24. That one's at 3:30 between the hedges. Georgia really needs this one, as we talked about yesterday, and I'm sure we will tomorrow and Friday too. Georgia needs to not only win this game, they need to win with some flair. They need to. I think they salvaged. I'm not going to sit here and say they salvaged their reputation in the second half on Saturday. It isn't like that. Now, listen, if it had continued on for two halves, then there'd be a big hit to the ego that Georgia would have taken. To lose by 7 in Tuscaloosa in the grand scheme, however you may have gotten there, isn't the worst thing in the world. And again, I think we're now seeing, as Alabama has been elevated to number 1 by the writers at least, this Alabama team is very good. And as we kind of joked yesterday, again, the reports of Alabama's demise have been greatly exaggerated. Alabama's just fine. They're just fine. And Carolina may see that firsthand next week. We shall see. But in the meantime, Bama, speaking of which, 23-point favorites at Vanderbilt. Tennessee, a 14-point favorite at Arkansas. And again, the one that it's designed to part you from your money. But Florida is a 2.5-point home underdog to UCF. Here again, same spread as the A&M game. And basically the same percentage chance. Florida, though, a 51.6% chance to win the game. Call me whatever you want to call me.
I'll call you Jay.
Thank you.
I won't call you late at night.
I just can't see Florida losing this game.
No.
I just can't. They might, but I just don't. I mean, especially with what I saw. I've only seen highlights, I'll be honest with you now. But Colorado just thumped UCF.
I watched a good bit of that game. They thumped them, and UCF couldn't really move the ball at will against Colorado the way they probably should against a defense that's not incredibly strong on the ground. I mean, Colorado, hemorrhages rushing yards, at a pretty worrying rate. And Central Florida, a team that is primarily a rushing team, could not get much going against them. I am surprised that Florida is only 51% chance, or whatever it was.
51.6
in the FPI. I am completely floored and flabbergasted that they are home underdogs to Central Florida.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Florida's not good. UCF, not good in an SEC sense.
Yeah.
But I still can see them dropping a hammer on UCF.
I'd love to know, and I don't know, and I don't have time right now, but I'm serious when I ask this. So it's not a completely rhetorical question. How many players for Central Florida right now start for UF? I don't know. I mean,
really, you think of Central Florida's two best players on offense, quarterback KJ Jefferson, is he starting over Graham Mertz? I don't think so.
I don't know if he's starting over Lagway.
Yeah. I don't think RJ Harvey's starting over Montrell Johnson.
I don't either.
So
that's what I'm saying. Like it's just I mean, Florida's got a mindset thing right now too, as much as anything. I get it, and like I say, a spread is not a prediction.
Nope.
So I'm not here to talk about it in those terms. And Florida is predicted to win the game, barely. But I just don't see it. And it's, again, especially with what we know of what Colorado did to UCF the other day.
And even when Florida's bad, man, the Swamp's not an easy place to play.
No, it's not. It's just, and especially this, there needs to be now, well, we'll see. But there you go. That's it for games this weekend. Everybody else, if you didn't hear a team that I just mentioned, it's because they are off this weekend. Real quick, one more here. Cut number 13, please, sir, from Clayton White today. Here is Clayton on how Carolina in practice is doing what they can to mimic how Ole Miss likes to play offensively.
It starts with our show team, our offense that's going to simulate it, and our offense itself can have gas plays itself, fast plays. So they do a good job of, we work it every week for like 4 or 5 plays against each other. But obviously, when we get like a 40-play rack on defense versus Ole Miss offense, and obviously that offense has to work it. We brought out, this is like my 8th year of this defense, 8th year coordinating, 11th year in this defense, and so we understand that you have to really work it at practice in order to get it. So, we work on it for sure.
It's again, that's going to be one of the big challenges. Is not only does Ole Miss find a rhythm again like they wanted to, and that they couldn't always find against Kentucky, but how South Carolina is able to substitute. And again, do you employ some of those dark art techniques that Ole Miss has been employing?
You won't have to if you get off the field on third downs.
Fair point.
Because you want to know one of the biggest reasons why Ole Miss, a team that, mind you, their first game, they ran 82 plays. They ran 73 the next game. They ran 79 at Wake Forest. They ran 69 against Georgia Southern. They ran 56 against Kentucky because they were 1 of 10 on third down.
Yeah, interesting.
1 of 10.
Interesting.
And they played. It wasn't like the offense was behind the sticks the entire time. Their average third down was less than 6 yards. They had third and manageable the entire game, and Kentucky got them off the field.
Job. Yeah, it's impressive, man. Again, if you can mimic some of what that Kentucky defense did,
you can do that. You're going to be in good shape.
I agree.
That's how you limit them to under 60 plays without having to resort to the dark arts.
That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Stop by the showroom, see why Herndon makes you smile. Together, let's drive. Come back on the other side. Taylor Swift gets a lot of attention around the NFL. Now, a new poll of NFL players is out. What do they think of Tay-Tay and the coverage that she has been getting? Might you be surprised by the results? I'll give them to you when the postgame show returns. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show here on a Wednesday. Again, tomorrow in the 3 o'clock hour, our good friend Greg Gaston, morning show co-host, Sports 56 in Memphis, Tennessee, will join us to talk a little Ole Miss. Looking forward to that.
Memphis.
And we'll have more from the Gamecock coaches and players. Shane Beamer speaks tomorrow night as well. That's part of Carolina Calls. Don't forget that. And then Friday, just real quick, I'll tell you that Elijah and I will be at Columbia Craft. Looking forward to that.
I like beer.
Yeah. Little nostalgia goggles, man. Again,
you like that one, don't you?
Vaulting
Yeah.
to the top of the charts.
Becoming a Jay Phillips favorite.
It is very good. Very good.
It's phenomenal.
I mean, I'm dead serious, and I am an IPA. I'm a beer snob, and I am a West Coast IPA guy. And I looked at Maz the other day, who helps run the joint down there, Andrew and all the great family. But I was like, Maz, this thing is like for real, for real.
Kicks ass.
And he's like, thank you, sir. He's like, we got some cans of it right there. And I was like, yes, you do. Because I said, hey, can you give me one of those growler cans? I wasn't sure. And he was like, no, I got to go right in the cooler. And I was like, oh.
The man. The man.
So check him out. Come see us. And we'll probably have some things to give away.
We certainly will.
Definitely some T-shirts.
A lot of T-shirts, some koozies for your canned beers.
That's right. So, I don't know if Taylor Swift's presence around Chiefs games is what you would call polarizing. But there are people, I don't like how much coverage Taylor Swift's getting. All right. I mean, it's like 5 seconds a game, but that's cool. She is, in my opinion, helping to grow the game. But now The Athletic, that's the sports website, has done a poll. They've done a lot. They'd ask a lot of questions, not just about Taylor Swift, but here at the end of the show.
These player polls are really good.
Yeah.
In general.
But they have polled hundreds of NFL players and asked them, amongst many other things, what do you think of the coverage that Taylor Swift is getting? Do you like it or do you not? 72.5% of the players that responded to the Athletics poll said they look at Taylor Swift's interest in the game and the coverage as positive for the National Football League. 72.5%. That's not just a majority.
It's the most 3 out of every 4.
Only 4.9% think it is a negative. So less than 5%, barely, but less. 22.5% just kind of see it as,
It's whatever.
And quite honestly, I would either fall into the positive or neutral category. It's not negative. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I get it. You and I were joking about the old Little Rascals He-Man, He-Man Woman Haters Club. You know, like, hey, you know, some dudes across America, you know, if they were showing Harrison Ford in the crowd, it'd be okay. And they show stars all the time. There's that famous shot of Rob Lowe wearing the NFL hat.
That's basically I hope everybody's having fun.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and I had a guy hit me last week in a positive way because something else came out about Taylor Swift. And he's like, they show other celebrities. I was like, man, they have shown celebrities in the stands at sporting events since live television became a thing.
Hey, when the Los Angeles Lakers got really bad, that's all they did show.
Yeah. And when they were great, though, there was always Jack Nicholson. Heck, I remember a game, Elijah, in the finals one year in the 80s. I forget which finals, Boston versus L.A. And the CBS cameras finally found Jack Nicholson, who had gotten a ticket at the Garden. Now, again, at the Forum, he was on the floor. Mm-hmm. Jack Nicholson, like, scalped a ticket on the next to last row of the old Boston Garden, and the cameras found him.
Imagine sitting by him. Imagine, oh my God, we finally got taken in this game.
That was the greatest night of my life. Even you know, the great Jack Nicholson. That's the ticket he could get. But the point is, the TV cameras found him because he was like the most famous Laker fan. She is helping to grow a product. Period. It's a business. She's not harming the game. Again, they barely show her when she's there. It's a flash here, a flash there. I don't see to me it is it's a positive from a business stand. And I have no stock in any NFL team. I'm not making any money off of it, man. You know, but I was maybe 72.5% that's a big number, but they love it because they understand they're also in business. And the players share in the revenues. The more money the NFL makes, the more money the TV partners provide the NFL's owners to distribute to the players, everybody's happy, man.
Everybody wins.
Again, it's a business, first and foremost. Yes, it is a sports product that is out on the field. But it is most assuredly a very capitalist enterprise. So there you go. If you want to see all of what they have asked these NFL players, you can find the Athletics NFL player poll at theathletic.com. It's that simple. There you go. All right, good stuff today. Thanks, as always, to our buddy Pete Iacobelli for joining us, the great Pete Iacobelli. You can catch that interview, what he had to say about Carolina Ole Miss, on our website. Good stuff, as always, Mr. Campbell. Thanks to Tyler Head for all he did for us behind the scenes as well. Do it all again tomorrow. See you.